Hi, welcome to the award-winning Ed Brown Show. I'm sure that all of you out there, you're into the holiday spirit, and we got two exciting guests here going to help you in many, many ways. We have the foundation, Robert Dunstan. Robert, he's been associated with a lot of you think a stroke is for, older people, but Robert said, hey, it's from 8 to 80. So he said, it means, what have you been eating lately and how was it prepared? Roderick, welcome to the Ed Brown Show.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor to be on your show today.
Tell us about, off camera, you were telling about, having your stroke and how the Prince George County system is antique because they really don't treat the problem. They just out there.
Well, the Roderick Dunstan Foundation was founded after I had my stroke on February 22nd, 2010. At the time that I went in the hospital, I was told that it was my second stroke.
And you didn't know about the first one?
I did not know about the first one. Also, at the time when I had my second stroke, I was also diagnosed with congestive heart failure because the stroke has caused so many fluid buildup around my heart that 15% of my heart was working at the time. So as luckily, I was sent to Southern Maryland Hospital, which is actually PG County, which is one of the top stroke rehab centers in Maryland and also Southern Maryland area.
But
so
the stroke,
the rehab center,
Southern Maryland. A
lot
of people didn't know that.
A lot of people
didn't
don't
realize
know.
That.
Yeah, but they have a great
strokes
rehabilitation center. And they definitely take care of you while you're in the hospital and when you get out of the hospital. So when I got out of the hospital, I went through the proper procedures of trying to get information, trying to get help because I was laid off. So I went to Prince George's County, and at the time they gave me $200 food stamps and put me on their Medicaid. So I realized that on my own, in order for me to get better, I need to educate myself. For one thing I did, I started educating myself by reading a lot about stroke awareness, strokes, how stroke happen, what we can do as far as to prevent strokes. And then I reached out to the National Stroke Association, which eventually became one of my homes, along with the American Heart Association.
And where is that located?
This American Stroke Association is located in Dallas, Texas, but they branch out everywhere. They have different facilities within the United States. So,
but which one did you?
Actually, I talked to them by email, by phone call, and then eventually I ended up visiting them once I became healthy enough to go out and visit. And actually, if you go on their website, you see the Roderick Dunstan Foundation on their website as a foundation.
You can go to the website and get this information.
You get the information.
See, that's very important. A lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, definitely. So when I started the foundation, basically to educate others and to help not only the stroke survivors, but the caregivers, and to provide information throughout the DMV area, sir.
So in having a stroke, you were saying that some people don't recognize it. What are some of the things that you think that's very important because you were saying that you thought you had a heart attack, and then you were also saying you thought it was the second one.
One of the things I emphasize, and one of the mottos of our foundation is don't ignore the signs. And part of the signs is, a lot of people think headaches is just headaches, but headache can be a sign for having a stroke or a blood vessel or a blood clot that's in your which is an aneurysm in your brain. Also, is dizziness, and also being kind of off balance, not knowing what you're doing. A lot of people get it messed up with heart attack because you do have some numbness in your arms or legs and stuff. Because you feel like
so it varies based on the chemistry of your body.
It varies on the chemistry of your body, but a lot of it is basically making sure that you know your body. We must know our body, know what our body used to do and what it can do, and it basically educate ourselves. Like I was telling you, 80% of strokes are preventative if we educate ourselves.
80% of strokes are preventable.
If we educate
and
ourselves.
That means you have to watch your diet. you have to get periodic health checkups.
Yeah, one of the things I emphasize is to please go get yourself checked out. When you go to a doctor, we try to go. A lot of people, especially in the African American area, African American men, we hard headed. We don't want to go to the doctor like we need to.
Yeah.
We want to self-diagnose ourselves. As we get older, we need to make sure we take care of ourselves, because not only do we are providing for ourselves, but most of us are providing for a family.
Family, yeah.
And in order to provide for family, we must be healthy enough to take care of of ourselves, so we can make sure we take care of the family. So I always emphasize, make sure to go to the doctor. Everybody do their annual checkup. They try to go annually, go to the doctor and dentist. But I recommend you go every 6 months.
Every 6 months?
I recommend you go every 6 months. And for real, I recommend you go every quarter, every 3 months. Because you never know within that time frame what happened. Because a simple headache could be a start of an aneurysm. And the only way you can tell that off the bat is to basically to get a CAT scan or MRI. See, that's a lot of things. A lot of doctors don't recommend to do a CAT scan or MRI, but I would recommend when you go to the doctor, ask for a CAT scan or MRI. Because if you do a CAT scan or MRI, you can see if there's an aneurysm in your brain prior to it. And you could prevent some major medical.
And in doing this, how do you get the young people involved in it?
I get the young people involved by the seminars that I do. I invite a lot of the young people out. I work with the Thurgood Marshall Service and Heritage Center in Washington, D.C.
Great.
And they have a lot of, they help me out by giving me a space to provide a stroke seminar.
So you do seminars also?
Do seminars, also go around speak. I'm ambassador for the American Heart Association, so I go around and do speeches for the
And then you're basketball referee, all of that.
Yeah,
you stay busy.
Yeah, I referee college basketball. But I'll talk to the young people, let them know about the education. The problem is getting them out to seminars. They were like, oh, it's boring and stuff. But you try to do different venues, different things to get them out. So like with the seminars at Thurgood Marshall Center, we kind of make it fun. We have like a walkathon, or we have like a little youth day where they have different other vendors and stuff. But I usually be the main speaker, and I give out the information and speak to them and tell them this is what we need to look for. But like I was telling you before, I going through my stroke and going through my time of being down and out, I visit Children's Hospital. A lot of people don't know Children's Hospital have a wing for stroke victims, for young stroke victims. I seen an infant that had a stroke at age newborn.
Had a stroke.
I seen a 5-year-old had a stroke. I had seen a 10-year-old. Maybe a month ago, a young lady who plays hockey for one of the local high school teams, she had a stroke while she was at practice on the ice skating ring. So we got to educate ourselves, making sure that not only ourselves but our family, because you never know what's going on. And part of the education is knowing your history, knowing your family history, as far as
now that's something that some people don't know their family history.
Well, I mean,
they're in a position, maybe the immediate family, grandmama is the last, those distant cousins and things like that had problems. They weren't actually involved with them, so they don't know very little about it. See,
I mean, that's when we need to start asking questions. I mean, growing up down south, like I asked a lot of questions, but my family's big, so. And also being a southern person and growing up down south, everybody, somebody got sick or someone passed away, my mom always called me, even though I'm all the way up here in Maryland. She always let me know. So you ask the question, well, what did she pass away from, or why is she sick? And then you start making notes of yourself. You need to make notes.
Well, actually, one way for that is a family reunion. We think of a family reunion as eating and having a lot of fun. But I find that family reunion is a beautiful place for information.
Yes.
Because Uncle John and Aunt Mary, you may not see them but once every 2 years or 3 years or whatever. And this is your opportunity to really sit down and talk to someone that are familiar with the history
Yeah.
of your family, because I've had situations where they say, yes, Uncle John, you better watch that. I mean, say Uncle John used to have those fits too.
Yeah.
They call them fits, you know,
But it's-
and they had different names for them, but they was something giving you information.
Yes, that's one of the things that we need to do. But I mean, again, it goes back to, you know, when you have not only my foundation but different other organizations out here providing information, let's take this information in. Even though, you know, when I have my stroke seminar, I might have 10 people, I might have 20 people, I might have 4 people, but the thing is, though, if I reach 1 or 2 per person to be able to put in their mind that, okay, this might happen to me, or this is what happened to my family member, let me find out more about it. And it actually makes you aware of what's need to go on. And I think we actually need to make sure not only that we educate ourselves, but you know, provide the information with your family members and stuff about stroke and stroke awareness.
Well, I think the male is very important because he sets an example. We generally, you know, the He-Man type. There's nothing wrong with you, boy. Go take aspirin, get some water or whatever, you know. But I think emphasizing the male, emphasizing health care is so very important. Because we have that image we have to get over, you know. There's nothing wrong with it. The idea is that you don't want to wait till something is wrong with it. You want to keep track. And I think that's a beautiful thing that you're working with the youth. And this foundation now, how do you, people interested in it, how do they make contact with you?
I'm on every social media. The Roderick Dunstan Foundation is on. We have a Twitter account. We actually have a Facebook account, the Roderick Dunstan Foundation. We also have a website, the Roderick Dunstan Foundation. You go to roderickdunstanfoundation.org. You're able to get on the website. It got a lot of information. I also have a direct link to the National Stroke Association. And also, if you go to the American Heart Association and you go to the Greater Washington American Heart Association / American Stroke Association. The information will get you straight. You can ask for the information and it will give you information.
You can Google, right?
You can Google Roderick Dunstan Foundation.
That's my favorite, Google.
You like to Google.
Right.
But it has my information. The website has my phone number. I'm a personal person, so the phone number is listed on the website directly to me. So most of the time, if you call that number and I don't answer, or someone that I forward the number to doesn't answer, because I have like 3 other people that work with me that answer the phone. I might forward to them if I'm doing something, I'm doing the game. But most of the time, 80% of the time, it's my phone number, and I'll talk to everybody and try to get the information and get back to you. What you need to find out, I will try my best to give you the information that you need to.
Well, give us some idea of preventive things that the audience can do. And they control that, and just like you say, it has nothing to do with economics. If you can afford a hot dog, you can afford something that's more.
I mean, one of the main things I would say is educate yourself. If you want to know more about stroke, like we said, you can Google it. There's a lot of information out there. They always emphasize taking care of yourself. They try to get people to do 30 minutes of walking or something.
See you in a second. We got an outstanding Mr. Carey here. We're going to talk about rehabilitation of prisoners. See you in a second. Hey, welcome back to the award-winning Ed Brown Show. And we're at Lamont Carey here, and we're going to talk about different things. What were you doing? Dead before 18? And one of the most important things that we think about, all of us, not just the young people, how to deal with cops. Lamont, glad to have you on the show here. You're going to give us a lot of information about rehabilitating prisoners, making that change back to the normal life.
Right. So, going back to the cops, the first thing I would like to tell young people that not all cops are bad. In some communities, kids feel harassed, but anytime a cop approach you, my first thought is for them is not to run. Second, always carry your ID, because that's going to be one of the things that they ask you for, your ID. And if you don't have an ID, they can actually take you into the station to verify who you are. So
that's very, very important.
Very important.
Youngsters, when you put your pants on, put that ID in there too.
And that belt. Put that belt on and put the ID on.
And that belt. Right. Okay.
And just be polite. All you got to do is the questions that they ask you, just answer them. They got certain areas that they label as hot spots where they can stop you and possibly going to ask to frisk you. Just be polite. My whole goal with writing the book Dec14 is to try to make sure that our kids make it home safe. So not only does it deal with police, it deals with gangs, it deals with drug dealing, it even covers when she says no. But one of the most important things for me is men don't cry. And you know how a lot of times you ask a young person, is there something wrong with them? They be like, nah, I'm all right, I'm good, when it's actually something going on with them. So the book focuses on helping them deal with their own self, but also to avoid getting caught up in the trappings that exist that can end them up incarcerated, disabled, or fatally dead in the streets. And the goal is to get them home to their parents every night. So that's the whole goal of the book.
Well, actually, those things that you emphasize, and most youngsters I know don't carry IDs.
Right. And so that becomes a problem, because when you're stopped by the police, one of the main things they're going to do is want to verify you are who you say that you are. And so the best thing to do is carry your ID, whether it's a school ID, non-driver's ID, just have something on them that says who they are and possibly where they live. And so the interaction depends on how quick you can answer the questions from the officers, determines how soon you are released. And if you run into an officer that seems like they're trying to provoke you, outthink them. Don't buy into it. And whatever you do, don't just turn away from them if they reach out and touch you, because if you turn away, then they may say it's resisting arrest, which it wasn't initially an arrest, but now you're resisting arrest and you could be charged. So again, the whole goal is to make sure the parents' babies make it home every night.
Now, in doing that, now that information should start at home, whether it's single parent or two parents.
Right. It should, but
how do you get parents to do that? It's simple. Carry ID.
Well, some parents don't have ID. Because remember, that's been part of like the voter registration and being able to vote. So a lot of parents don't have IDs, which we all, in my opinion, should have an ID. But I think a lot of parents don't have this conversation. They just tell them to stay away from bad guys, or I don't like you being around this guy.
Watch your peers. Yeah.
Right. Or don't be hanging out on a corner. And for some reason, us congregating in our community amongst our friends seems to be a negative, but it's not always that case. Our kids in a group shouldn't symbolize criminals, shouldn't symbolize in the process of committing a crime. But because that is our reality, I think for the parents, the key is not only do you tell your son to be safe, don't hang around certain individuals, you have to make them aware. Like in the book, I talk about when I was a young person, I learned drug dealing just by coming outside and playing. And I remember that a drug dealer told me to let them know if the police coming, like whistle or something. And what a young person doesn't realize is just whistling can make you part of a conspiracy case. Oh. Because it's saying you aiding and abetting a crime. And so things like that is what I try to cover in the book to make the young people aware, because when they're not within the company of their parents, they're going to be confronted with all kinds of stuff. And so if I can make them comfortable with the decisions that they make by making them aware of a situation before it leads to something tragic or something violent, That's my aim. And so the goal is to make them aware, make them understand that it's okay to cry. Because a lot of them are taught that men don't cry.
Right.
And some women teach their sons that you're a man, you're a big boy, don't cry. And that's telling them to deny their feelings. And when you tell a child to deny their feelings, what is that anger? What is that hurt? Where does it go? And so it teaches them to put on a facade to pretending that nothing is wrong with them. It's not only that they're tough, because sometimes our community tell us, when you tell us not to cry, you telling us to not to be vulnerable, not to be weak, to show no weakness whatsoever. And so toughness becomes the norm.
Measured that way.
Right, even if that's not what your child is tough. We pretend to be tough, and we also pretend to be tough because a lot of times it's a way to keep people from preying upon us. And so you have to teach your child to be, when they hurt, cry. Tell somebody. When they're going through something, let somebody know, because kids interpret. I was once one of those little kids that interpret not crying, meaning not allowing nobody to know that anything is affecting me. And so a lot of times I lash out in anger. But it could have been avoided if my parents allowed me to communicate or taught me how to communicate the feelings that I'm having. And so a lot of times when we aren't able to express ourselves verbally, we do it in another way. You know, women say a lot of times men don't say, I love you. Men prefer to do things and say, I opened the door for you, or I paid this bill for you, and that's my way of communicating that I love you. And so a lot of times how we communicate is shaped from when we were small children.
Now, a lot of people understand it. I don't know whether they are aware of the conspiracy. There seems to be an obvious conspiracy that the black male up to age 25 has been targeted. 80% of the prisoners are black males. And why is it the women, the black women, are not involved? Is this a conspiracy to wipe out the black male population?
Is it a conspiracy? I mean, we came here as slaves. We had to fight for that freedom. We had to fight to be able to walk through the front door of a hotel to register to get a room. And so there is some containment, I believe, that exists that want to keep us in our place. But I also believe that our community sometimes teaches us to conform. And it goes back to even when we were talking about with the police officers. A lot of times our interactions with police officers at a young age, we see them as a villain. When they come into our community, they're taking somebody away that we love. And so there are so many variables to how young men end up incarcerated, but being targeted, of course. If there was a statistic that I read probably like a year ago, where they're using third grade test scores to determine how many prison beds to build in the future. So that means if they're looking at our kids, third grade test scores, that means that the educational system and the parents have to apply themselves to be able to help our kids to bring up their grades. But one of the things that I found out is that most prisoners are school dropouts, right? And so if you're a school dropout, how engaged are you going to be in your child's homework? I remember my mother didn't like going to the school to speak to the principal or the teachers because she felt that they spoke above her and that they couldn't understand, that she couldn't understand what they were saying to her. So that made her skeptical of even attending PTA meetings. So, but in order for our kids to be able to resist, to avoid being incarcerated, avoid being caught up in criminal activity, a lot of it depends on the messaging that they receive from within their own community. Now, I went to prison at 16 years old, and I remember I mean, I stayed back in the kindergarten. I stayed back in the first grade. I don't know how you stay back in kindergarten, but I stayed back in kindergarten. But I remember being told in my community that you grow all the way through school and your mother can't afford to send you to college. It's a waste of time. The white man ain't gonna let you be nothing. So it's a waste of time. And so in my young mind, what that made me think was, why would I go down this pathway when they said it's a dead end? And so I learned how to sell drugs playing in the yard. And so that was instant money. That was instant opportunity, because the drug dealers moved out of the projects that I lived in and moved into their own house, drove their own car. So it seemed like if you telling me about a dead end that exists, and this guy or this woman has a shortcut when they're selling drugs, I chose that. But choosing to sell drugs opened the door for a whole lot of things, opened the door for violence, because eventually I ended up running around with guns, and that's how I ended up in prison at the age of 16. So again, the reason for me writing the book, Dead at 18, it's almost like I'm trying to save myself by saving these young people, and the best way to keep them out of prison or in harm's way is to make them aware of what's out there that exists that's going to lead them to prison, that's going to lead them to death. And so peer pressure plays a major part in all of that.
Yes.
And so we have to make sure our kids are equipped to be able to evaluate their friends. I have a program where I work with juveniles that's charged as adults, and a lot of them end up incarcerated because of the person that they were with.
Yeah, peer
and they're
pressure.
guilty by association. And
That's
sometimes it's not just, it's peer pressure, but it's not always, sometimes it's not peer pressure. If you and I are hanging out and I'm a knucklehead, but you and I get along and you're a good guy, you don't know I got a knife on me. You don't know that I have a gun on me, and we get into an altercation with somebody, and I stab that person, I shoot that person, and we run off together, right?
Yeah.
Because you didn't call the police, that makes you an accessory to it, right? So we have to, when we tell our kids, don't hang around this person because they're a bad influence, we have to explain what bad influence means, because a lot of times we use words that our kids don't understand. So we have to break it down in terminology that they clearly will understand. And then sometimes your child, my child, is the bad influence. And so we have to not put it all the way off on other kids. We have to watch our kids, know our kids, and not just see them as the infant that they were, but as the individual that they are turning into. And again, a lot of times it's influences that are around them. So one of my suggestions is, whatever it is that your kid like, try to get them engaged in a program that offers that. So a lot of times in our community, we talk about we don't want our kids in sports. We don't want our kids in entertainment. But those are billion-dollar industries.
Well, that's what's happening. You see, I got a call. Hey, Ed, time is almost up. You know. But anyway, quickly tell us about the way the system is going now, of where they are using the prison as a corporation.
So they have private prisons. The initial goal was supposed to be to take off some of the major expenses on states.
But now what they're doing, and your rehabilitation program helps these youngsters when they come out to get jobs and make adjustments.
So
okay. Lamont, we got to have you back here, man, because it's a lot of things that we need to know about that we don't know about. Okay, this has been Ed Brown. Oh, have a nice holiday.